One day back in the 1980s, I was in a deep meditation, and the first of a series of quite amazing experiences occurred. I had been seriously meditating and working on my spiritual path from the 70s, and I had always asked, well, I want to know, what's life about? What are we here for? Where are we going? And how can I serve? Questions like that I'm sure we all ask. In this particular morning, two light beings appeared. And they escorted me to what I later discovered were what we would call the higher spheres, the higher dimensions. And ahead of us, I saw this incredible light. It's hard to describe in our 3D terms because it was so intense. And as we approached, I saw that it was a multitude of light beings. The light was so dazzling, I just stood in awe looking at this, not comprehending really what it was all about. And in front of this vast multitude and around were other groups and circles of light beings, not quite so intense as the main one. And I was prompted to look down, and I saw that my, as it turned out to be, a soul identity, if you will, myself, my real self, was quite dull. It was grey, it looked heavy, and later I was given to understand that this represents our soul journey. And when we start off awakening up and on our spiritual path, we usually have quite a lot of density and karma drama and all those things to work on, and that is represented by this greyness, this dense body that I appeared to have. At the time, I didn't know all this. I was fairly new on the path, so I didn't even have words to explain this. I just took it for what it was, an amazing experience. It was only in the following decade, really, where I had a series of these experiences over a period of time. But during that time, I was studying, I was learning a lot more, I was getting a vocabulary, I got introduced to the universal tree of life, the Kabbalistic teachings of the Order of Melchizedek, and so gradually I found ways of explaining what all this was about. And over this, as I say, this decade, on the occasions that this happened again, where I was taken to this realm, I received understandings according to what I could cope with at the time. And it was like downloadings is the best way to put it, so that gradually that, together with the study, I was getting the answers to the questions that I started out on. Almost towards the last time that I was led to this sphere, this realm, or dimension, if you will, the outer circle, to my surprise, opened and I was welcomed in. And this circle, I recognized some of these light beings as ascended masters. Now, it wasn't because I was an ascended master, sadly, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here. But it was to show me that the work that I had done up to that point and was continuing to do so, and still to this day, was preparing me to be able to raise my frequencies to work at times with the ascended masters, and that is what I've done, in particular Saint Germain. And so the downloadings then were able to have more depth and more meaning, and that's what I still work on and share today, both in my own journey and in my teaching service. Okay, why am I telling you this? It's because what I would like to share with you today is about the light. And to me now, having experienced a little bit of what, to use the term, the light looks like, what it feels like, the sense that you get in that higher light, means that my understandings are not just intellectual knowledge. I do have a sense of experiential understanding to go with it. So what I'd like to share with you today, take you on a little journey, is of something that's my passion and still is, and I've called it spiritual science. And the reason for that is that I use a similar methodology as conventional science. Now, in conventional science, as we know, the various elements and all the things that make up our physical world are expressed in letters and numbers. We all know, I'm sure, that H is hydrogen, O is oxygen, and if you put those together, 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen, what do you have? H2O, and we have water. So it's the same principle, except I'm using what we call the light alphabet of creation. In other words, a divine alphabet that still uses these symbols to express whole vast areas of understanding and meaning. I think this is fascinating. And what is its relevance? Well, to me, it's made sense of what we're here for and what we're aiming to achieve. So I'd like to share it with you. This is my passion anyway. In the scriptures, there are 2 accounts of creation. Now, to me, they are allegories, if you like, of what is actually, as far as science is concerned, in broad terms, an understanding of how this universe and universes, plural, were created. And at the beginning was created light, so it says. And science has also said that everything is composed of light, which is waves and particles. It's got the 2 properties. And so I'm using this as a parallel. I'm no scientist, but to me there is definitely a parallel that you can draw. And to me, in my terminology, spiritual science and conventional science are 2 sides of the same coin. And now is the time, as I'm sure many of you have found, that these 2 are coming together more and more. And that's what's really, really exciting. In The Keys of Enoch, which is a book by a dear friend and colleague, Dr. James Hurtak, he states that matter is generated from light. And I'm going to show you how this has been actually written down, if you like, to show that this connection of divinity through light and through into matter and into us. Light is all around, it's within us, we're all part of the light. And one of the ways of describing it in science is the 0-point field. If you're interested, I can recommend a wonderful book by Lynn McTaggart, just called The Field, who explains this and the findings of a lot of scientists in layperson's terms, which is what I required. But there's a couple of wee quotes that I'd like to share with you. Albert Einstein said, "The field is the sole governing agency of the particle." And Max Planck said, "The energy field is the matrix of invisible sources." So to sum it up very, very briefly, the 0-point field could be seen as a self-generating ocean of light. We are beings of light. How do I know? Well, I've seen them, as I say, and I'll explain how it relates to every single one of us who is a divinely created soul on this planet. So, I'm going to use the methodology, as I said, similar to science, that defines elements of creation by symbols, which again indicate vast amounts of information, properties, compositions, different substances, and as they're combined, as I mentioned before, the H2O, you get different formula to express different things. So welcome to what I think is the awesome alphabet of creation. Now there is a very ancient text, it's one of the oldest we have, called the Sepher Yetzirah, and it is attributed to Abraham, and it explains there these symbols are using the ancient Hebrew Aramaic language, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest one that we still have, that define it with 22 symbols. We call them letters, flame letters, but they are symbols. They represent a whole lot more. In our alphabet, ABC, they're just letters that have evolved. But these are picture symbols, if you like, that express a lot more than just the surface appearance would make you think. So the foundational symbol, or flame letter, shall we say, of this superluminal light, which is a name that Dr. Hurtak uses, which explains the greater light, the non-physical light of the divine creation, is called Yod. Now the Yod, as you can see, looks like a flame. It's coming in that particular diagram from the light, which is the source, if you like. And so it's known as the intelligent flame. It's the limitless light spectrum that contains all potentialities of creation. And it's the first primal cause substance, or the symbol for the first primal cause substance. So you'll probably know that in many other traditions and cultures and spiritual paths, the flame or the fire energy is understood to be the motivational one, shall we say, of creation. And it's often referred to simply as the fire element. So again, we have this correlation, because in my journey, I love comparing the way I express things and understand things with other paths and other ways, because to my understanding, they should all coincide. And so far, they have, in what I've come across anyway. Now, what's really intriguing, I think, is that there's a deeper correlation too with science. Now, there's a science of numerology called gematria. It is the science of numbers that is used in particular relation to the Hebrew Aramaic alphabet. But it's similar to our own orthodox numerology in the sense that if you have two digits, you imagine there's a plus sign between them, and you always reduce it to 1. So the Yod, the gematria of Yod, is 10. And 10 does actually, in orthodox numerology, which I've been doing for 40 plus years, represents physical creation. Now here's where it gets fun, I think. If you look at the gematria of 10, hydrogen, which is the most important, or the first of the 4 main components of this physical world and of life itself, if you take it from the periodic table of elements, one of the properties given there is the atomic weight, and it is 1.0. Using the gematria of reducing it to 1 digit, you get 1. So in this alphabet, you're seeing that Yod can also represent hydrogen. I think that's rather fantastic. Then we have, I'm just going to pick out 2 or 3. I'm not going through the whole alphabet, don't worry. Another one that is very, very important is Hey. Now, what's interesting about this little Yod fellow is that it is used in every one of the other 21 symbols. It's an extended form maybe, or an elongated form, but the Yod is there. Now what does that mean? To my understanding, it means that this first cause of creation from the divine, the superluminal level of light, is expressed through all of these other symbols, which I think is rather clever. I will draw one on the board for you in a moment or two to see how it works. But okay, the next one is Hey. And Hey has a literal translation, which is window. Now you think of a window, it's a transparent doorway, if you like, for the person on the inside to look out, and for the person on the outside to look in. Now it is actually, again, a metaphor for what many cultures call the all-seeing eye of God. So you can imagine that it's the divine mind, or the creator, the Godhead, deciding to create and looking through, out, and using the superluminal light to make up what we know as creation. And notice the gematria, which I've put there. He is 5. And nitrogen, which is one of the other 4 main elements, is 14. Using gematria, 1 and 4 makes 5. I think this is intriguing. Hope you do too. I just added these because I thought this was rather fun. There's a crop circle showing the all-seeing eye. And there's this beautiful nebula that was filmed from the Hubble telescope, which sort of looks rather like an eye, doesn't it? So we can use our imagination on that one. Okay, so the next one, which I'd just like to share with you, and these are the ones that I'm working with in this little talk today, is vav, or vowel. Now, the literal meaning of this is a hook or a nail. In other words, it's something that links together, and you'll see it has a bigger significance a little bit further on for us as people, as well as in creations, thinking that God is obviously linked, if you look at it that way, to all his creation, or its creation. I don't like the gender thing of his or hers. Now, here's another little thought. The other metaphor, if you will, for creation in the scriptures, in the New Testament, in John, it says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was God. The Word was with God. What is the Word? When we have a thought, we link it to a vibration as a word, and that's why the letter or the symbol of vav or vowel represents also thought. So you could say that two of the main characteristics, if you like, of conventional science to do with creation is light and vibration. Here is the symbol in the light alphabet representing this linking of vibration. And so the word that is said that was used to create what we understand as a physical universe was a vibration set in motion by the Godhead or the source. I use many terms. Please don't get hung up. Use the term that feels right to you. And notice this other connection, which again I think is lovely. The gematria of vav is 6, and oxygen, which is the third most abundant and most essential of the 4 elements, there's the atomic weight mass there, 15. Using gematria principle, 1 and 5 make 6, same as vav. So to me, I think this is just quite awesome. And also, if you look at it down here, we've talked about the hydrogen, we've talked about the oxygen, making water. 70% of the world, of course, and us is water. So, where does this divine superluminal light that I'm mentioning come from? Well, light, as we understand it in the divine sense, is an emanation of the divine love of the Creator. I think all traditions say that love is the foundation. So the source was love. With love, the creation was started, and light is simply an emanation of that love. So it's the presence, if you like, that's behind the light. And that's why in Kabbalistic terms it's called the Ain Soph Aur, the limitless light, because within this love-like creation of the divine, by whatever name you choose to use, is all potentialities, both past, present, and future. Hold that thought, because I'll come back to it in relation to ourselves a little later on. So you could say, as I say, there's a lovely picture there with the globe showing that divine love is the presence behind all of this creation. And does it manifest here? Well, yes, I included these 2 little pictures because you can see at times, providing the frequencies are high enough, the vibrational frequencies, this superluminal light as it is appears. Now you'll see over here. Now these were taken by Dr. Hurtak again, who's been working in this field for 40 odd years or more. And when he goes on both archaeological expeditions as well to prove the existence of former races that we've had here too, but also he gathers people together who are working in this higher frequency, using the correct vibration of tones, sound, music, sacred chants, all of these things that have an incredibly powerful vibration. And on one occasion, he went to the, on this particular occasion, he wanted to prove it to the Great Pyramid of Cheops in Egypt. And with his team of people who were very much in tune with all of this understanding, knew the vibratory levels necessary through chants, through sacred words, through the mantras, through the higher music, the higher linguistics, they actually were able to produce light. Now, I have seen the actual video of this happening in live, which he showed at one of his seminars. And you will see here, this is the Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid. And to see it actually in action is awesome, because the light is completely dark when it starts. And then as the sound and the vibration raises in frequency, this beautiful gold light started appearing from the two lower portions of the wall. And it just simply got stronger and stronger and went up, as you can see both sides, until the whole gallery was lit. So I've actually seen that in action on video. Now, what's interesting, because I've always had a link with Egypt myself, is that no evidence of any artificial light has ever been seen in the pyramid itself. Like in most of the old buildings, you will find that you can see smoke, or a place where a torch was put to light the way. Nothing like that in the Great Pyramid. So how did they see inside? Because if you've been inside, it's completely black. This is how. They knew these same secrets and were able to generate the light required in that pyramid, which, as my understanding was an initiation chamber. It was not a tomb. It was not meant for that at all. But that's another story for another time, maybe. Okay, so where are we up to at this point? Well, you could say that divine love, out of love came the light that was needed for creation, then came life, including us, you and me. So we are part of this superluminal light. And I'll share that a little bit further down the track of how you can actually really understand this in a way that is very useful too in our own journey. And I've been working with this, and it's really very, very exciting. So how is this light alphabet, let's call it, how does it actually show divine creation? And this is where, as I say, I call this a spiritual science, just my own terminology, that you can see it step by step. These symbols are referring down through the different terminology of the light alphabet. So the light alphabet of creation starts at the beginning, as one would think, with the name for the Godhead, which is Aya, Asher, Aya. And you'll see it there in the Hebrew Aramaic as well. And that's in the scriptures when Moses went up Mount Sinai and said, by what name shall we call the God force? He was told, I am that I am, which is Aya, Asher, Aya. Now, looking at just the Aya, the I am that I am, I've done it larger so that we can see. Now moving on to here, first of all, the I in the I am in the English translation, it represents the consciousness and the beginnings of thought, because everything, as we know, starts with a thought, whether it's what we're creating or not. So the thought of creation was there first, and the I represents that, and the whirlings, as it's called in Kabbalistic terms, on the tree of life, which is found in Sepher. I'll come back to that a little later. The Am in our translation stands for the vibration. the divine thought expressed as a word. And as I said, there's the quote that I gave you just now. So here's the tree of life, just to mention, to show you what I was mentioning before. The Kether is this light here, from which everything emanated. Now, all of this started from what's called the three veils of the Absolute. This is these three little arcs here. It's only a way of just doing a diagram so that we can understand it better. Now here's where we agree with science again. Professor Stephen Hawking, who is probably arguably the finest mind in physics on the planet, in one of his books I read, he said, everything comes from nothing. And I thought, wow, okay. Scientifically, I can't get my head around that. But guess what? Ain means no thing in the Kabbalistic interpretation. So everything, all of creation, which this represents, because we're down here with the belief, comes from no thing, from nothing. So again, we agree. Isn't that neat? This is why I love the two sort of sides of the coin. Okay, so I will show you a little bit more about the language of how it works on a personal level a bit further on. But that's just to give you a little bit of a feeling of where I'm coming. So you could say, get back to us, because after all that's what we're here for, is to figure out what we're supposed to be doing and how to do it. We all have, from the I am that I am, from the Godhead, an emanation that we call our I am presence. You've probably heard of that term. Or you may prefer the term higher self, God self, over self, body of light. All of these things to me mean exactly the same thing. So in other words, from the supreme I am that I am, the Godhead, was emanated countless I am presences, which were individualized aspects of this whole. Now, the I am presence, which every one of us has, every divinely created being on the planet has a higher self or an I am, is fortunately for us on a level or a sphere, shall we say, that is untouched by whatever we do down on the third dimension. So that's the good news. But it never comes into the third dimension as such, because it's way, way above our frequency here. So in order for us to experience this third dimension, which is what we all decided to do a long time ago, and please don't ask me why, that is the million-dollar question. We're here, we apparently volunteered to experience and experiment down here, to become co-creators. I'm not so sure, I think I might have been drunk at the time I volunteered, but never mind. We're here with all its ups and downs. And so in order to do that, again, a reflection of our higher self was required, which we call our soul. And that carried the divine spark. We all say we have a divine spark. That carried the divine spark of our I am or our higher self, so that the soul could clothe itself in various garments every time we wanted to incarnate on the earth plane. You could think of it like an actor wanting to play in different plays, or I call them soap operas actually for what we're doing, most of us. However, for each play or soap opera, we required a different costume, a different setting, and so forth. And so the soul chooses that each time in order for us to work on whatever it is that's holding us down. Remember I said it was heavy and grey was the picture I was given? It's to gradually purify the soul. Why? Well, because once the soul is purified again back to its pure light, the light of the soul becomes so vast that it simply transforms the rest of it, then it's no longer needed, and we do not have to keep reincarnating here if we choose not to. Yay. In other words, we can reunite our soul with its higher counterpart, the I am, and move on to other realms of experience that we have no understanding of course now, or, like the masters, we could choose to come back in service. So the difference is we don't have to come back, whereas now, because we're all sitting here, we've had to come back. There's things that have brought us back into incarnation. Unfinished, I call it unfinished soul business. Karma, the term is your own. But in other words, we have to come back. So if we can complete whatever it is and all these connections that we've built up, then we purified that soul, the spark becomes a whole flame, transforms and moves back into unity. And most spiritual traditions say we're returning home, don't they? Returning back to source. So that's another way of putting it. We're going back to our personal source, which is our I Am Presence, which of course is part of the whole source. So, this is where I think it really starts getting quite amazingly exciting. Okay. What name is there that also was given for the master architect? Because, okay, the Godhead had this wonderful idea of creation, but to carry it out it needed, shall we say, a master builder, a master architect, a god, if you like. Not a Godhead, a god. And in our Kabbalistic terminology, we call it Yod-He Vod-He, or Yahweh. And it's symbolized by that. Now, it's simply the Hebrew Aramaic name or symbols for the Creator God. Now, this is where I think it's fun. Remember, I showed you the I am that I am, and in it is Yod-He. Now, that's the short version for the whole one of Yod-He Vod-He, because here it is, Yod-He. Oh, Hebrew Aramaic reads right to left, by the way, not left to right. So it's as though you could say that from the Godhead, the I am, the limitless light, needed to move that light, that superluminal light, and encapsulate it, if you like, in the name of the Creator God, called Yod-He Vod-He, or Yahweh. And so here it is again there. So I've just done that to show you. Now here's another fascinating thing. This Yah, or Yod-He, here, which is again the carrying of the superluminal light from the Godhead now down through the Creator God, is also in that word Chaya, Yod-He. And it means life, life force, or chi. Now you've heard that before. This is where Eastern and Western religions are saying the same thing, but in their own terminology. So in other words, we wouldn't be alive if we didn't have Chaya. If we didn't have chi within us, we couldn't exist. We have that life force, which is represented here in that terminology. But here is the superluminal light. Here's the He, the shortened version of the God. Now, don't we say often that the God is within us? Yes, it is. You can see it here in this alphabet. So, another way of looking at it is to say that we've also got all of these elements within us now, from the Yod-He Vod that I've already talked about, as our original God code blueprint. Now, this is in our DNA, and this is where I think this is just amazing. There is a connection between our DNA and this divine name of the Creator God. It's as though we carry the divine love essence within our very cells. And to explain it better, I was asked to present a paper a few years ago in Turkey, in Istanbul, to an international symposium. And so I explained it this way, that modern science defines the basic elements of creation as we know, which makes up the physical world, by numbers and letters. Now, the 4 nucleotide bases of the DNA are an abbreviation for groupings of these 4 elements that I've already talked about, and they are labeled A, T, C, and G. Now, these same elements of hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon are present in each DNA base, but it's the amount of each that varies, and that's why they've given them the ATCG terminology. The 4th element, carbon, corresponds, if you like, to our physical world. We know that we are a carbon-based form. Now, the chances of these correlations of the gematria occurring by random is, it's been worked out, 0.00042. So I don't think it's just coincidence. Now, apart from Dr. Hurtak, who first discovered this connection in his Keys of Enoch way back in 1973, it's in Key 202, where he explains all of this in very technical scientific terms. But in more recent years, another wonderful teacher on the planet today, whose work I think is magnificent, is Gregg Braden. And he's also studied it. And he wrote a whole book just called The God Code. I can highly recommend it if this interests you. So I'd like to read just a little bit from that because he puts it so beautifully. He says, there is a mathematical link between ancient sacred alphabets like Hebrew, the letters of those alphabets, and the DNA of the cells of your body. Through that link, when you look at the chemical codes within your body, the numbers allow us to replace the chemicals within the letters because they match. So the DNA begins to spell words, and the words begin to spell sentences. Our genetic code spells the ancient name of God. The same name lives within all humans, regardless of any differences, real or perceived. This relationship between all mankind was described in the sacred texts such as the Hebrew Sepher Yetzirah at least 3,000 years before modern science verified such connections. So to me that's really very, very exciting. So, okay, let's have a look at it. How does it apply to you and me now? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. And this is where, again, I think the connections are just quite awesome. Interestingly enough, too, in that divine name, you've got Yod Hey, that's the English one. Notice that you've only got 3 different letters and the Hey is repeated. In the 4 nucleotide bases, they only unite in 3s out of the 4 at any given time to form codons. So there's another little connection. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. Write it vertically, and look what you get. A little person. It's like we have a light frame. Okay, so you can see it very clearly. The Yod represents the head. Now, remember that the Yod is the light, it carries the light. In other words, the light of illumination. We've got the third eye, which is the inner eye of light, if you like. So all of those processes that we receive and make sense of everything is in the head. So that's the Yod. Then you've got the Hey, which forms like the shoulders and arms. Now remember, Hey also referred to breath, which I didn't mention before, but I'm now mentioning. And what's encased within this area are our lungs and hearts, which of course process oxygen. And then you've got the connecting link here, the Vav. And what is it that connects us, our head to the rest of us? It's the spinal cord and the spine. Without that link, as you know, we wouldn't be able to function. And then the last Hey represents the hips and the legs. So I'll just share with you a few properties now of those same symbols now as they pertain to us as humans. Yod is the main light spectrum, and it's the, as I said, light coming from the center cause, if you like, of the creator. It represents also that idea of spirit descending into matter. I'll just go back on it so you can see. It represents the divine spark, as I mentioned before, here coming down into our soul. And so all of our qualities that make us human come from that divinity within us, that divine spark. Love, compassion, understanding, and so forth. And have you noticed how virtually all traditions in the world, spiritual traditions, use the flame as a symbol, the candle? They have many other meanings of it, of course, but it is always represented as the eternal light. the light that doesn't diminish no matter how many other candles you light from it. So again, you can see there's the correlation between East and West and the various traditions. It also represents the higher wisdom coming down, and it's understood that here is the point of divine will, the will to create, coming down into creation as divine wisdom, which means through our head, our brain as the receiving mechanism, we can receive this higher wisdom if we work towards that. You could say it's got a little bit, this yod fella, the properties of a stem cell, in the sense that yod has all potential. A stem cell that can be now used to create any other kind of cell, the yod flame represents that same faculty. So Hay, as I say, going back to the here, represents the breathing and the heart pumping apparatus that gives us life. That we need breath and we need oxygen to exist. And it vivifies our whole being. Now, sometimes it can be seen here as a light body made up of flame. And you could say that that is the framework of our higher self or our light body. Now, what's the relevance to all of this? Okay, we're getting there. So, we have this God code in ourselves. We have this ability to limitlessness, remember? And therefore, all of the things that we ever might want, a reservoir of divine power that can release energy, perfection, beauty, substance, wisdom, limitlessness, anything you can think of is actually within us. We're only limited by what we think we can't do. We all know that one, don't we? And gradually people are pushing the boundaries and saying, well, why are we limited if we're divinely created beings? And I believe that this is where in the scriptures it says we're made in the image and likeness of God, that it's the light body that it's talking about, not us in our physical form, which, as I say, is temporal. It goes at the end of each incarnation. So if we have this reservoir, if we have all this limitlessness, why aren't we using it? And so part of my journey is finding out how much I can actually work with this knowledge and bring it into practical usage. For example, I have self-healed 2 conditions which medically are untreatable. And if I had not, I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't be able to walk. I'd be in a lot of pain, both from a collapsed foot and a lower back degeneration, which was a genetic thing passed down through our female line in our family. And I still have the scans, CT scans, and the printouts from the MRIs and all that saying what medically it says. And when I have ever gone back to see the orthopedic surgeon, he's so interested in this funny foot because by rights I shouldn't be able to walk and I'm not in any pain. There is no answer to it. So how did I do that? Okay, simply by using this knowledge to saying I'm going to reactivate. Remember what Gregg Braden and Dr. Hurtak called it, the God code in your DNA? Reactivate that and let it start transmuting all the imperfections that have got laid over it. Right. So there's just a diagram to sort of give us an idea. We're going to come back to that a bit later, so it might help you just to have that in mind. Now, I've included that because it is also understood, and this is from the Keys of Enoch as well, but Dr. Eric Pearl, who is well known for his reconnective healing, brought this into the public domain by realizing that we have what are called accitonal lines in our bodies, which are extensions of our acupuncture lines or meridians. And these accitonal lines, as they become restored and reactivated, then connect us much more clearly with our higher self, which in turn connects us to the cosmic grids. And that's one of the principles that, you know, reconnective healing that it rests upon. Now, okay, if we have these grids, again, what is it that is holding us back? Well, I had a wonderful picture of them once when I looked sort of inside the body. You know how when you see signs over buildings or businesses or shops, during the daylight. You can, but at night all lit up in neon light. You know, you can see the tubes of the outlines, but they're all black and dark. And it's only when the power is switched on, they all come to light, and you see this magnificent shape and so forth. Well, that was, again, a metaphor for what these external lines are like within our being. They're there, but they're not activated until we start becoming aware of it and doing the necessary work to clear all the obstacles and imperfections that we know we are still working on in our spiritual life. And once that light switch goes on, wow, we have an inner body of light. And then we have quantum powers and a quantum self to actually work with. It's called, in modern days terms, ascending stages of the light body. In other words, we're trying to get more light generated from within our very being. And the term that's used is ascension. That's been around for a long, long time. What is it that's ascending? We're not actually working on the physical body per se as the goal. We're working on that soul, because that's what's going to ascend. And that's just a diagram there of the Merkaba, which is known as the vehicle of ascension. And there are keys that we can actually unlock what's holding us down. And this is what my work's all about. If you are interested, please do look on my website on the table, or I can tell you about it at any time. Okay, can this inner light actually manifest also via a person? This was a photograph taken of Dr. Hurtak when he was working with a group in this kind of very higher work of higher linguistics and higher vibrations. And if you see the look of surprise on the people there, the gentleman behind and the lady turning back to it, this was not a fluke of the photography. This actually happened. The people verified it that were there. So it was, this light was generated and more or less projected from him. So yes, occasionally, if the circumstances are right, it can actually be seen. So would you like a light body experience? I'd like to take you through one. Okay, see if you can enjoy it and find out what it feels like. Okay, so if you'd like to join me, close your eyes. I'll give you, or before you close your eyes, have a quick look at these diagrams. This might give you an idea of the picture that you might like to see. The only suggestions, because we don't really know, we're all unique. But you can see there, you can either see it as the sort of spots of light, if you like, the cells lighting up as on the left, or on the right you can see the axiatonal lines there, lit up like your inner neon light body. Okay, so just close your eyes and see and feel first only your physical body. Your hearing, your thinking, you're identifying yourself at the moment with your flesh and blood person, your imperfections of your 3D self. Now go deeper into your DNA, into the very cells that make up your physical body. This is what makes the body alive. DNA is alive, it defines you. Remember what we've been talking about, the God code in the DNA. Every cell, it's as though it contains a holograph of your divine perfection, from head to foot, filled with this perfect divine blueprint, just waiting for you to restore it and bring it back into activity. Now breathe deeply some more divine light. Imagine you're drawing light and consciousness from your pre-existent light body self, which we normally feel or sense is above us. Pump more light on every breath of energy of divine perfection into your DNA, into the neurons, into the whole body network. And as we do this, let's use the universal mantra of Aum. And Aum has actually 3 syllables, which means creation, maintaining that which is positive, and destruction of that which doesn't serve us, the imperfections. So let's do 3 Aums, and as you do it, imagine now you're drawing more light and bringing it into your heart-soul center. This is where we have the pilot light, the flame, as it were, the spark of love light, the light of your soul. And what you're wanting to do now is to expand that so it can go throughout your whole body. So let's just do 3 aums with those intentions in mind. And if you can visualize it happening, that's also very good. But don't worry if you can't see it, just intend it. Feel that vibration. Feel it getting faster and faster within your body. And as you're looking within, notice a light form appearing, as though a body of light is being reflected from your I am light body now within your physical body. This is the reflection, the inner, it's called the Gematria body of light. It's comprised, remember, of these extended acupuncture lines, the accetonal lines. You're lighting up that inner light within. Breathe in deeply once more and see this light power being restored, first faintly and then getting stronger and stronger. See if you can see now within your being, your physical form, the shape of your inner light body. Now focus your attention of this light over any area of your physical body that isn't feeling comfortable or that could do with a boost of healing light energy. Give it more energy of the highest love light kind. Notice that the light frequency actually can, the more you do this kind of work with this intention, does ease conditions in the physical. If you have pain at any time, focus this light frequency on it. Because this love light frequency, we know love is the highest vibration known on the planet. So you're focusing that high frequency, which will eventually help transform and heal it, if that's in your blueprint. Okay, just notice how you feel before you open your eyes. And then you can open your eyes if you like. How does it feel? Do you feel lighter? I always do. And I think the more you do it, of course this is the first time, but if you do something similar, there's no set routine for this, I'm just giving you suggestions. But with the principles behind it that I've shared, and using that knowledge now, you can work on it yourself. And your own, if you ask, your own higher self and soul will guide you, will give you understanding, so that for you it will become really relevant and meaningful. I can only share you my version. Each of us can do this for ourselves, and that's the power that we actually have within. We're not helpless, powerless individuals. And one of the other applications, which I'll have to go very quickly through because we're nearly up in time, is that you can use these same principles, these same understandings for manifestation mastery. Does that sound good? I call it fail-safe manifestation. Why? Because I've worked at it now over the last few years, and as you know, the more you work at something, the better you get. You're developing the skill, and so of course the results get better. So have you ever sort of thought these sort of thoughts? No matter how much work I put in, things just don't seem to be getting any better. Ever had that feeling? You maybe have been in spirituality for some time, for many years maybe, following different teachers, different programs, but haven't seemed to succeed very much in tangible ways yet. Things still seem to be much the same. Maybe your finances aren't so good, your relationship isn't that hot, health isn't perfect, so what can I do? Any of that sound familiar? Because I think for a lot of us we've been there. Okay, if you're using this understanding of that higher power within you, then you don't need all the affirmations and all the repetitions and all of those processes as you did before. So I've just put together a very quick little checklist. As I say, it takes a lot longer to explain in detail, which I'm happy to do at some time for anyone, but these are the basics, shall we say. Okay, fail-safe manifestation keys, that's what I'm calling them. Okay, first of all, focus only on the outcome. Now, this is a bit different from what you might have read, and I'm not saying what the books say are not correct. They can still work too. But this is how I now work with it. Instead of saying, okay, a specific small detail of something I'm requiring or desiring, notice I don't say need or want because that suggests neediness and wanting, then the outcome is what I'm focusing on. Not how I get there, by whom, or what's needed to do it. Just hold the outcome in mind. And if you do that, you don't need to ask. Who are you asking anyway when it says ask for something? I've always sort of thought, who are you asking? Fairy godmother? Genie in the bottle? Yeah, well, sometimes, maybe. Don't limit. You know, people have worked for a long time. Manifesting money is a good example. And they say, I just need X amount of dollars a week or whatever. Why limit yourself? What's the outcome you need those dollars for? Focus on the outcome. It may be a thing that's necessary, or it may just be, and this is what I do, I just say, enough abundance to flow effortlessly into my hands and right use, is the terms I like to use, that enable me to live joyfully, effortlessly, with comfort and ease. That's my little mantra for the day. And therefore you don't need to put a figure on it. Try it and see. And there's a magic word. Wherever you're forming this outcome in your mind, use the magic word. Well, I call it magic word. And the magic word is perfect or perfectly. Why? Because then you don't have to list all the things you might miss if you don't remember to say, oh yes, it needs to be this, all the details. It takes forever. And then at the end you think, oh, I've forgotten so-and-so. Okay, forget all of that. Just use the word perfect or perfectly. There is nothing higher. There is nothing more. That sums the whole lot up, isn't it? Okay. Then do check your motive and what you're using it for and how much you desire it. Are you determined to stay focused on this or not? Motive, obviously, we know. I don't have to say this again, is always for not only for your highest good, but for the highest good of all. In other words, no one else suffers. We know that. I know you all understand that. And what you're going to use this manifestation for? Is it again for the good of all, or is it a very selfish personal thing that's at someone else's expense? Okay, so do always check that. I guess I put that in just as a fail-safe. But it doesn't mean that you can't manifest something that's for your use and your enjoyment and your benefit, but it means that it's not going to affect anyone else, all right? And of course, the highest use is, in my understanding, the more I have to enjoy, the more I can share with others, and the more time I have to work on the things I love, to do my service, to help other people. If you're struggling to survive, in any way, whether it's health issues, money, or whatever, that takes up so much of your time and focus, doesn't it? Okay. But know and accept that it is your I am higher self. This is why this is fail-safe. Your only source of power. Because knowing that power, you attract it to you. If you are powerless, then that will repel anything. What does powerlessness mean? Well, think of it. What are the things that you sabotage yourself with? I'm sure we've all had some of these. Oh, do I deserve? No, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. Is there enough? Of course there's enough. There's a limitless universe out there. So there must be enough for everybody. Okay, don't sabotage yourself. Check what you're thinking, what your immediate reaction is, and that will give you a clue as to any sabotage programs you might still be running in your subconscious mind. Now, only absolute certainty. If you don't have absolute certainty that this is possible and allow it to happen, then it won't. And if you ever get a shred of doubt popping in, go back to, well, this is what I do anyway, I go back to my higher self and say, and I use the name of Yod-Heh Vod-Heh as a chant or a mantra, that's my source of power. I'm part of that creation, of that limitlessness, and so as part of that creation, I also deserve and can bring into manifestation anything I require or desire. Make sense? And this isn't selfish. Anyone out there that says it's selfish. How can it be selfish? Because the happier you are, the more abundant you are, the healthier you are, doesn't that affect everybody around you? Of course it does. It goes into the quantum field memory so that the whole of humanity can actually access it a little easier. Okay, follow this came from St. Germain. Long way. Okay. To know. Well, this is the knowledge I've been sharing you a little bit about. If you don't have this understanding, of course, this particular methodology won't work. This is how you apply it. Dare. You're going to dare yourself to do this and say, well, I'll give this a try. Dare yourself and see what happens. It can't be that bad anyway. And then go do it. Give yourself the time to focus on your outcome. Clothe it with enthusiasm and excitement and energy and feeling. That gives it some oomph and some life. Always remember to serve, and any of your successes, you help others, you know that. And be silent. What does that mean? It means if you go around saying, well, I'm going to manifest this, I've got a fail-safe way, blah, 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 what have you immediately done? You've dissipated the focus and the energy, but not only that, even if somebody doesn't say it aloud, they may think, well, they think they know. How can you do that? Simple as that. Look, you know, all those negative thoughts. And what will they do? They can impinge on you. So don't talk about it, just do it. And do be aware of the universal laws, because if you're not in alignment with those, then obviously that's going to hold your progress up. And I have got a little booklet of about 80 universal laws that I know of. There's probably a lot more that help you to align with them and work with those energies. They are cosmic in their application, so we do need to have an awareness of them. And then, as I said earlier, decree the outcome, feeling, enthusiasm, gratitude, as though it's already happened, joy, and imprint it, what I call on the quantum field, to observe the perfection already there. And all you've now got to do it is to bring it back into the physical. And how I support it is with divine names, sacred chants, mantras in any of the sacred languages, whichever is your favorite. It doesn't have to be Hebrew, Aramaic, it can be Sanskrit, it can be Tibetan, whatever one you prefer. Because this does help to release the power of co-creation. And then enjoy, share your happiness with others, express gratitude for this wonderful, limitless life and universe that we are part of as divine beings. So I do hope you will, if it appeals to you, give that one a try. And I would like to just close my talk today with a blessing in this language of light. It's a universal salutation, as I said, of the light beings. the Brotherhoods of Light, and it links us all as divine creations, and the world definitely is in our hands. Each one of us does make a difference. So I'd like to just close with the Kadosh mantra. If you know it, please join me. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Savayot. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Savayot. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Savayot. With this blessing. Thank you.